right, welcome to the second game of the evening. Up this time is Wytchwood, spelled Wytch. I'm not sure if that's like a legit old spelling of witch.
I mean, it is by the sheer force of they didn't actually nail down spelling until the 1800s or something.
Right, but we don't really have time to get into the orthography or orthology of the English language. But Wytchwood is a crafting adventure game set in an expressive land filled with gothic fables and fairy tales. As the mysterious old witch of the woods, you explore a strange countryside, collect magical ingredients, brew sorcerous enchantments, and pass your twisted judgment upon a capricious cast of characters and creatures. After all, how will they ever learn if you don't teach them the moral of the story? So, we got the Switch version of this game, and it's over to the Galax to see how that turned out.
Overall, I came away from this game with a very positive opinion of the game, but some caveats to that. So yeah, you're playing as a witch with a cauldron for a helmet who lives alone in the woods. You wake up with not much memory of the last any given period of time, and a goat having eaten most of your spell book. So you give the goat a haircut so it can see, and then it tells you that it's intelligent and that you made a deal to recapture 12 souls for it. In exchange for waking up an old, a beautiful maiden that's sleeping in a cave on your property. So you have to go to the 12-ish areas. There are some sub-areas too. Over the course of 3 days. With 4 souls per day, I believe. So the first day, you only have to go to a few of the areas. Well, technically, the first day is just like a training day where you, like, get into the place where the lady is sealed. But the first day, you have to go to, like, 3 or 4 of the areas. Then the next day, you go to... Yeah, it's the first day, it's 3. The next day, it's the other 4. And then, presumably, on the third day, you have to go to all 8 areas. And the primary gameplay of this game is picking up materials on the ground, using tools that you get to pick up other materials. Like sometimes you get shears that you have to... There are only 4 permanent tools that I've found so far, which is slightly disappointing. You get shears for cutting grass or fur or whatever. You get a hatchet for breaking wood or some other... actually, the hatchet is a lot of the time what you have to use later on in combination with other items for, like, killing monsters to get their parts. Like, you use a smoke bomb to stun mosquito thingies, and then you have to use the axe to cut them up. A net that is used to catch bugs and frogs and fairies and occasionally some kinds of birds, although a lot of birds you need to trap. And there is a trowel, which is used for digging up dirt and breaking some rocks and stuff. And then you use the items you get from doing that to craft other items that you use to either interact with the world or... like a lot of... One of your abilities is you can press a button and you get a cursor to move around the screen, and you can highlight interactable objects, and a lot of them will have a weakness listed, and that is the thing that you need to use to be able to harvest them or get them out of your way. The crafting tree gets very deep, and there are generally not shortcuts to it, aside from occasionally in some areas you'll find boxes that have a couple of items in it that might have already been crafted up a stage or two. Like you need to cut down reeds and pick up sticks and craft those into wicker. And then you have to craft the wicker with some barnacles to make a crab trap, or you have to combine some of the reed rope with mosquito noses to make sewing kits, but the mosquitoes you need to craft smoke bombs, which require mushrooms and snap seeds, and it's like that. It generally, when you're in an area, it's beneficial to just pick up whatever you run into. There is a fast travel system in each of the 8 main areas. Again, there are like little sub areas off some of them. There is a hidden passage that you can open to the central hub area. But I didn't use those that much because more often than not, it was worth it to just walk. Because while you're walking, you can pick up random stuff. There is a health meter. The first day, you don't really need it much. There's not much that'll hurt you. But in the second day, and actually later in the first day, you start running into more monsters that will get aggro when you get near them. So when you do that, one of the first potion you learn how to make is a healing thing. But you have to remember to use that. What was I going to say? Yeah, because the goat, before it was possessed, ate pretty much all of your recipes. You start off with very few things that you can create. But a lot of the time when you interact with a thing, you'll just automatically remember the recipe that you used to interact with it. Like you pretty much learn to make crab traps when you see a crab. You learn to make spirit salts when you see a ghost that you need to use spirit salts for. Actually, I think you get that one earlier, but that's just an example. But then sometimes it's a little inconsistent, like you don't learn that you have to create puzzle boxes to pop the hat off of a gnome until well after the first time you've interacted with the gnomes, who are just otherwise random field NPCs. So the story of the game is a little bit... I wanted to finish it, but I was not able to for reason involving the caveat that I'm going to say at the end. So I don't know what the actual resolution of the story is, but it actually is kind of interesting wondering how you got the way you are with not much memory, and like how the lady ended up being trapped on your property and why the goat is entitled to these souls. As a nice touch, on the first day, the witch is a little bit tentative about getting souls back from random people for this goat that looks kind of creepy. But it turns out that they're all really terrible people. So on the second day, she has much less reservations about it. But yeah, a lot of the game, the story is not super complicated. A lot of it comes down to the atmosphere and the character and stuff, and you get a lot of... The dialogue has a lot of great character about the witch being on the old side, no nonsense, a little bit weird. I really enjoy this. She's not necessarily entirely a good witch, but she's also not an evil witch, it seems like. So she'll, like, splat birds and stuff to get ingredients without any particular reservation, and she doesn't really mind inconveniencing people sometimes, but she generally only does bad stuff to people who deserve it. Yeah, the first couple areas are not very heavy on NPCs either, but then you run into more once you get to the actual town and market areas. So yeah, the aesthetic of the game is very, like, storybook diorama, which really helps with the fairy tale atmosphere. The music is appropriate also. It's when you're in the woods or a swamp, it's fairly low key, but it gets a little more energetic when you're in a place that's more heavily populated, even though the witch is not a super huge fan of being in places with lots of people. So yeah, the biggest negative of the concept of the game is the fact that there are no shortcuts later on in the construction. So even later on, when you haven't been back to the forest for a while, you may get a requirement that in order to pacify a particular enemy and get some of its materials or something, you need something that requires forest herbs and sticks, which, okay, sticks are pretty much everywhere, I think, or at least are in a lot of places, but forest herbs pretty much only grow in the forest. So you might actually find yourself having to go back to an area that otherwise has nothing to do with your business to gather materials to craft the thing you need to get the materials to craft the thing you need to use to interact with the NPC that drops the material that you need to craft the recipe that you need to do to resolve the puzzle. And the last thing is a little bit different because in addition to the regular recipes you can craft at any time, there are also situations where there will be, like, an object you need to interact with multiple items or ingredients. Whenever you do that, you have a journal in your menu that will track what things you need for it, but it's a little bit easier to lose track of those sometimes. And that's different than when you're just making it yourself. Also, sometimes it's not always clear how many of a thing you're going to need, although stuff that you used for a specific thing earlier on in the game will often become either used for something else or an ingredient that's used to make something else later. So that's useful. I think it could stand to have had a few more of the regularly useful recipes become permanent items. Like the fishing line could be permanent, because that's reusable, you know? But maybe that's just me, I don't know. And again, that would cut down somewhat on the thing, because a lot of the gameplay is just gathering things and trying to put them together and experiencing the character in the game. So here comes the stuff that I had a problem with. The Switch version seemed to have some performance issues. The menu was a little bit on the laggier side, either when you're crafting stuff or when you're switching between the tabs. And also, I believe there is not a manual save option in this game. I think it's supposed to save either when you quit the game or at the end of a day. I'm not sure about this, but this became a problem because the game crashed on me like 3 times. And the first 2 times I didn't lose much progress, but the last time I lost 2/3 of the second day, which kind of put a damper on my plans of coming back to finish it, because both it set me back a lot and the fact that I had lost that much progress kind of bummed me out. So I can't speak for other versions, and they could increase the stability or something, but there's a little bit of a caveat emptor there. You may end up losing some progress. Also, I imagine other versions have achievements, and the Switch version does not, if that's a thing that you're into.
Mm-hmm.
Do either of you guys have any questions? I really did enjoy the game a lot. It just really bummed me out that I lost a lot of progress.
Nope.
I think I'm good.
So yeah, that is pretty much what I have to say about the game.
Okay. The pricing on this is $20. Though there is a bit of a discount on the Steam version, $17.99.
Mm-hmm.
Well, do you think the game is worth $20?
Yeah, actually. There's no, like, combat or anything. Insofar as there is combat, it's stun a thing and then use an item to harvest them while they're either stunned or... So, if you're interested in it's more of a, like, puzzly adventure game. Like, they call it a crafting RPG, and it is that, but there's a lot of stuff that's in traditional RPGs that really isn't, so it's almost more like an adventure game that just has a really huge emphasis on inventory puzzles. You know?
Right.
So yeah, I think it's worth that price for the amount of time that you go into it. I don't know how much replay value there is, but I suppose you can always try doing things in a different order.
I suppose so.
The game doesn't let you, like, do everything in a totally self-contained way. Like, you have to go into different areas to get ingredients for a puzzle in one area, in a given area. So you can't, like, okay, I'm going to take care of everything in the swamp, because you have to go to the fields and the forest to solve stuff in the swamp, you know? But yeah, overall, I did enjoy it a lot, and I think you could do worse for that than do worse for $20, and you could definitely do worse for $18.
All right then. So that'll about do it for Wytchwood here. Be sure to tune in after the break, as Petty Fan will be tackling Reminiscence in the Night.